4 green bars. And
See, what's weird is I'm looking at your signal strength, and it's got one little tiny red bar. I know that's not mine because I'm on fiber optic, so it's
I'm on
crazy.
a Verizon Wi-Fi. I got 5 green bars on my screen right now. Is my
Huh.
picture clear?
It's not as clear as when you're at home, but it's plenty
No.
functional.
Right. I got a scratch on my chin. That's not from shaving.
Mm.
Trimmed your beard, dude.
You know, I I'm back. I'm headed back into mountain man mode. I ain't got it. We got the last competition of the year done this weekend. It was actually at our facility, so
That's
lots
what
of
you were
work, lots
saying.
of hustling, but glad to have it behind us.
That was a 3-day event. Butch, what's up? Thank you so much for
It
coming.
was just Saturday, Sunday. Mr. Butch is one of the faithfuls. He'll be around. You can death, taxes, and Mr. Butch will be on time. You can believe those three things in life.
Good evening, Mr. Paul. We got 15
So,
people online so far, so we're doing pretty good. Is my background too noisy, or are we okay?
no, it's fine.
I
I
got
know you're nestled in a little cubby hole over there trying to get away from.
yeah, I'm in our library, where we did that interview with you
That's
last
right.
year.
That's
Uh-huh.
right.
And there's
Still hadn't got that buck on the wall, I see.
no, the buck that I killed is at the taxidermist still. Mr. Hagan Lee. Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back. Apologize for the long delay. We've had several weeks off, and I've had some personal issues that I've had to deal with, but I've also gotten really busy. Hunting season started, deer season was in. We had 35 deer hunters in here in a 10-day rifle season, so we were slammed, and I've had my children off and on, so I've just had Tuesdays. My Tuesdays have been super busy, but we're going to get this thing going again. I don't know that we're going to be able to do it every single Tuesday, but we have we just started duck hunting again, and I think the purpose of the restart tonight is going to transition into hunting season. And tonight, Stephen and I talked earlier today. We're going to try to cover um, some real live hunting stuff during the hunting season, and then transition back into training in the spring. But Stephen, you brought up a good several good points today. If you want to talk about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it.
Well, one of the one of the things I really enjoy about what I get to do is the opportunity to go and hunt around the country and the different experiences that hunting brings. Whether it be hunting different types of ducks, hunting the same species of duck that's in a different type of pattern, whether it be a migrating bird or a local bird, or ducks that have been stale because of weather conditions, or just falling into a comfortable pattern. The moon, all the different things that are variables that play into hunting, but it's just amazing to me the opportunity to get to go around and see the different places, the beauty that God get made, on this earth, and what we get the opportunity to experience. But it never seems to fail. No matter where I am, it I'm humbled at the different experiences that the dogs have to deal with as well. The different situations that dogs are put in, and how few times, even with dog people, how few times the dogs are given the first thought when it comes to setting up or being successful for ducks. Everybody's worried about, what calls to use, where can we hide, what kind of camo do you need, what's the decoy spread going to look like, what's the wind direction, and very, very seldom does anyone think first, where do I need to sit the dog so that he can see the action and set him up to be the most successful he can be. And I give this speech multiple times every year, and especially this time of the year, over and over and over, that A trained dog is not a hunting dog. A trained dog is ready to learn the experiences of hunting. So taking these dogs hunting in that first year is no different than taking small children. The experiences that they have um, moving into this whole deal is going to shape their attitudes for life. I mean, for instance, last night was the first night that I went deer hunting all year. I took Darcy and Wade, my 7-year-old and my will be 5-year-old, and I had a pop-up blind, and I never in my whole life have ever shot a deer over a pile of corn. There's no sport in it to me. I don't really think that's what I'd qualify as hunting. But I had 2 piles of corn out that we had gone and set out a week before and checked every day to see if deer were coming. And we went out there and we sat in a pop-up blind with gadgets and toys and everything to keep them entertained until the deer came, and had the piles set up where the deer were going to be very visible, where they could see them, not just slipping through cover in the woods, where they were going to be able to see the whole outline of the deer, see the interaction of them, the whole 9 yards. I did all that not because I wanted to shoot a deer, but because I wanted my children to experience hunting in a positive light. And I think that's the same thing that we need to do with our dogs when it comes to duck hunting. Like I said, it baffles me every time we get set up in a new place and I look out there and go, this is so neat. This is so different. My gosh, how much of a shell shock must that be for a dog that's never been in this situation, seen this, and now we're going to start banging guns and hollering his name and seeing if he can actually function in it. It's just, it humbles me. It makes me sad, and it realizes how much a large part of my industry, a large part of what I do is based around controlling failure. Because at the beginning, young dogs are going to struggle in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it be they're wanting to break and they can't be steady, or they don't know if they need to go and they're hesitant, or they're just overwhelmed from one experience to the next. It's just so much that we throw at these dogs. And at the end of the day, the hunter in us, the excitement of the hunt seems to overwhelm so often our values and our priorities, and we end up picking a really good place to hide, and usually the dog's sitting behind you and he can't see anything, and the world keeps on spinning and the dog just doesn't get what it could get out of it. So there's definitely some things that I wanted to harp on tonight that I feel like could make it better for you as hunters to have the opportunity to give your dogs positive experiences. You might not kill as many birds, but I would definitely say quality can overcome quantity in these types of situations. So this is, I guess, a glorified public service announcement of what. Please do this with your dog when you're starting to go hunting, because it will make you so much happier in the long run.
I will tell you that, we haven't had many big duck hunts yet. We're just getting cranked up. We have a long duck season. It starts in October, but we don't really get it fired up until mid on through January. But the hunts that we've been on, I want to tell you one of my experiences, and maybe we can talk about this. So we killed a few ducks one day over Tanner, and the first duck that we shot was a greenhead, and it was 25 yards from the blind. And what do you think was the first thing he did when we came up and shot the bird? What do you think he did?
He probably tried to catch that sucker.
He broke, yeah. He broke like a some gun, and he ran past it. And so I stopped him. I handled him to the bird. Literally, it was, I would say when it hit the ground, it was probably 35 yards away. I handled him to the bird, and he ran past it. And it finally dawned on me, I think he's looking for a bumper. Is that real?
What was the bird stone cold dead?
Stone cold.
Or was it a cripple?
No, it was dead.
A lot of times, the first thing that came to mind there is a lot of times when a bird's crippled, a dog won't recognize it when they're coming out of training because they're expecting a dead bird. And when it's crippled or sitting upright, they don't recognize it as the object to be retrieved because they're looking for, even though it maybe once upon a time was alive, that now it's dead, it's flat, it's laying there lifeless, and that's what I'm looking to pick up. It could have been he was just so overwhelmed with the experience. He was so jacked up, maybe it fell around. He might have been running for the decoys behind it. There's 1,000 different things. I don't think that he blinked the scent of a live bird for preference looking for plastic, but he may not have recognized the lack of scent that wild birds have as opposed to tame birds that they do. A duck might smell like a duck, but it don't have the same strength of odor. So there's a multitude of variables, but here's what I wish you would have said is that Tanner broke and he ran past the bird and I stopped him and said, no, here, and made him come all the way back and sit in that blind and didn't get to pick that bird up because what did you teach him there? Okay, I can break the first time out and I'm still going to get the duck. The bird was stone cold dead. It was laying in the decoys. You could have let it sit there for how long and nothing's been hurt by it.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because it only took one bird, and when he finally picked that bird up, I think he tried to suck it dry like a Capri Sun. And that was all it took. But if that happens again, I'm glad we talked about that because I didn't even think, all my training, all the stuff that we did this summer completely fell out the window because I was in a hunting scenario and I wasn't even thinking about training. I was thinking about handling and I should have done that. I
appreciate you telling on yourself.
Yeah. I apologize to myself for doing that.
The super great competitors that are hunters as well. One of the ones that pops into my mind is Mike Gibson, who's one of the most successful SRS amateurs out there. The most successful dog competitors hold their dogs to the same standard, whether it be training or a competition. Now, that being said, Mike's really, really great dogs. Jeter, guess what he does on the first bird out too?
Break.
And that's what because he got away with it. And if you're not careful with a dog like Tanner, he'll figure that out. And the first bird out, you'll be apologizing to your guys. He's going to break the first time. And let me tell you something. It's fine when he's the only dog out there, but when he's not the only dog out there, you talk about feeling low. When the guy with the dog on the other end of the blind shoots the bird first and your dog breaks and goes and gets it, might be okay if you're the guide, but not if you're the guest.
And especially a guest that I said couldn't bring a dog because he might break. And then
I'm in that situation and I got that dog and I'm the guest. I'm over there, got the dog in the headlock when the first bird comes in because you will not break. You will not get away with this. So
I need to build me a woodshed behind every pit we have.
See, the good thing about what you've got is you have the opportunity to expose any dog you have to every blind or condition that they're going to see ahead of the season, as opposed to what I'm doing as a trainer or even what I'm doing bringing a dog to a new location. My dog's got to be able to adjust super quick. He's got to be able to deal with the factors involved with it. Something as crazy as I was delivering dogs a couple of weeks ago. I made a trip west to drop off some dogs with some clients to do some hunting and hunt. I seldom have my go-to dog with me. I always seem like I'm hunting a new dog just to get them a little bit of experience, to get them a little seasoning, and we went to head towards, down into the river swamp to go to the boat. And the guy said, let the dog jump in. And I went, oh, wait a minute. We're going to ride in a truck down there and there's not a dog box in the back. Dog's not used to riding in the back of the truck without me there. Hadn't been schooled on that. So, on the way down when he was dry, I let him ride in my lap in the front. And on the way back, he and I both rode in the back with me sitting right there by him. You know, that's an experience that I would not allow him to take part in an uncontrolled atmosphere. That's how you get hurt. So in that first duck hunt, that dog experienced his first ride in the back of the truck, his first boat ride, his first time hunting in waist deep water off a stand with 4 or 5 people shooting. All those firsts in one duck hunting trip, just because it was his. Exactly,
It's a lot of
100%.
moving parts, boy.
And it blew his mind. All that stuff he handled pretty well, except for the hunting in waist deep water and me sending him on a blind when he's treading water beside me, rather than him sitting on the bank and in a nice, comfortable bottom underneath him and me saying dead bird back. I'm saying dead bird, and he's actually treading water beside me. And he's going, wait a minute here, dude. And you say, well, back means back, and he should go no matter what. Yeah, that sounds great on a postcard, but you know, in real life, things like that happen. You know, and that was what overwhelmed that dog, was leaving in a and Elaine said it was his first time in Stephen's lap. Thank you very much, Mr. Lane. All that being said, there's always new experiences to be had. There's always, and there's ways that, and training that we can replicate it. But all this goes back to anyone who calls and asks me about sending a dog in for training, and they're going to send their puppy in. You know, the big 3 things I tell them is I want a dog that has a relationship with you and is well socialized. If you have one, you're going to have the other. I want a dog that loves you and has had as many positive experiences as possible. Land, water, retrieving other dogs, riding in the buggy, you know, all these little things that you can do with a dog that gets them comfortable in their own skin, because a well socialized dog is an easy dog to train. And the third thing I want is a dog that's crazy about retrieving. It doesn't mean that they have to deliver to hand. I just want them super excited about something, having something in their mouth. Because if I got a dog that's geared towards retrieving, that's ultimately going to be their job. And if I have a dog that's well-rounded and super socialized, it makes my job training that dog so much easier, because it doesn't see a boogeyman around every corner. It doesn't get paranoid when it's put in foreign situations like riding in the back of a truck or riding in the back of a buggy, things like that. It may not be easy for them, but they handle it so much better because they're a more level animal. And if they have a relationship with you, when they go home, all this work that I have done with them is going to easily transfer back to you because of that strong bond. So there's so many things, so many things. Years ago, I took a dog to a guide in Louisiana, and we hunted a dog for a few days. He was looking at buying him, and we hunted for 2 or 3 days, and he said, man, this is the best dog I've looked at so far, but it just isn't what I want. He's not meeting what I'm looking for. I said, what exactly are you looking for?
That was my question. What exactly are you looking for?
He said, man, when you drop that tailgate, I want that dog to jump in the boat. And when you get to the boat, I want to jump into the blind. And when you start calling and the guns go up, I want to look for birds. And I said, man, there's nothing that you said that has anything to do with training dogs. I said, everything that you're describing is life experiences. And I said, this morning in the pitch black dark, this dog jumped in this airboat and had his brain vibrated inside its skull. I said, what did he do? He said, exactly. I said, what did he do? He said, he just sat there. I said, exactly.
He was freaked out, wasn't he?
No, he was not freaked out. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew I was right there, and he knew he was going to be okay. But he had no reason to be excited. We're barreling into the black dark. I mean, where are we going? What are we doing? But he wasn't sitting there peeing on the floor of the boat. He wasn't trying to bail out. I said, man, that's all you could ever ask for a dog that's never done this before.
No doubt.
And then we got, speaking of less than desirable spots, we get to the blind, and it's an elevated blind, and the dog box is under your feet in the blind. So the dog is
And
under your
on the
feet.
bench, under your bench, or under your shooting platform is.
You're under the shooting platform itself. So
Wow.
they're actually, you got the footrest is up here, and the dog's underneath you on a stand. You're literally shooting over the top of him, out projecting out. So it's just and he at that point, that dog's sitting there going, "Where's the guy standing by me shooting the gun?" It's literally thundering over his head. And, for a dog that's comfortable, that's been there, that's no problem at all. But for a new dog, it was going, my goodness, what is this? So everything he described, I said, man, the only thing that you got to do with this dog is hunt him. And I said, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You tell me how long you want him, and you write me a check, and I won't cash it until you know that you really want him. I said, and if you don't, we'll come get him whenever you want to. And we made it like it was like a 4 or 6 week deal. I don't remember how long it was for the deadline. He didn't have the dog for a week, and he called me and said, cash a check. I mean, it was nothing. Everything he wanted was what you have to do with a dog and teach it how to hunt. He didn't want a trained dog. He wanted an experienced trained dog, and that's two different things. And experience is just something that you get by going through the motions and actually doing these things.
You can't buy experience, right?
The first time I ever hunted geese in Canada, the guy said he was buying a dog from me, and he said, we're going to find out if this dog's steady. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you'll never know if you truly have a steady dog until you goose hunt in layout blinds and 11 people sit up at the same time and shoot. And he was right. I mean,
20 geese fall out of the
we're
first
shooting
ball.
greater Canadas that look like they were at the end of your toenails, and you pulling the trigger, and it sounded like, it sounded like thunder when the birds hit the ground. Mm-hmm. But that was a perfect example of, you cannot replicate that in training. You can't do that. I mean, all you can do is work with a dog, get them to be steady, work with the motion and the movement aspect of it, and then let them get some experience. And if you got a dog that's going to be a breaker and you know they're going to be a breaker, put them on a tie-out stake so they can't break. Set them up for success so they're not going to be overwhelmed. But, I just gave you three.
I got a question for you there. So, I mean, interrupt you, but while we're on that topic, if let's say I'm hunting Tanner tomorrow and he's in a dog blind,
mm-hmm.
and he breaks 3 times in a row, what do I do?
If you're going to be a good dog trainer,
yes, sir,
make him sit in that blind and let you walk out there and go pick it up yourself.
Say that again.
Put him back in the blind. You leave him in there and let him watch you go pick it up. That's the real lesson. When he figures out if he breaks, that you're going to pick it up and not him. He's a smart dog. He'll figure this out quickly. And if you feel like that is something that you want to avoid happening in the first place, then just have you a little eye bolt with a small chain, hook him up for that first time or two, walk over there and let him ride after that. There's a difference between, preventative maintenance and, saying, okay, I feel like this dog's ready for this situation. I feel like they can handle it, so I'm going to give them enough slack so that they can operate within that. But dogs like Tanner that figure out first time you shoot, they can break, they'll do it every time, and it'll get habitual, and then you won't be able to stop it.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow.
I mean, like I said, it's not like those birds are going to get away. It's not like they're going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I was thinking back to last year. First bird I shot, no dog marked it. And remember what I said? I said, let's leave that on the ground. That'll be a good blind for later.
I remember very vividly. I remember this.
Yeah, and I remember you told me I shot the hen, and it was actually the drake.
It was a young drake.
But the point to be made there was I wasn't jumping out. It's prime time hunting. We knew the duck was dead, and if the dog didn't mark it, I'll remember where it is, and we'll go find it later. It doesn't hurt if you got a stone cold dead bird and you know it's stone cold dead. letting it sit there a little longer actually makes it easier on everybody, because the longer it sits there, the more scent's going to build up, and it'll be easier to finish the blind if it's in a. I know it's about right there, but it's not 100. You know, I'm 98% sure where it is. You get them downwind there, and it's a whole lot easier for them to win that bird.
Well, the two things I remember about that was you said, "Now watch. This is why I felt like this dog is right for you, because no dog marked that bird, but when I send Tanner, I won't have to do a lot because he'll hunt on his own, and he won't come back without the bird." But the other thing prior to that, which I wanted to get to, because it was something I thought about you a lot the other day on his first hunt of the year. You know, remember how hard it was to get him down in that dog pit, and you know, you're like, wow, well, this is different. And you know, you even went back to Georgia and had someone build that to simulate that, so you could teach dogs to get into that box. Well, we rolled up to his first hunt this year was in the same exact pit that he hunted for the very first time last year, and we pulled up to the blind, and I pulled the grass back, and I said, "Tanner, kennel," and he jumped right in there like he knew exactly what he was doing. And
that's the difference between the start and the seasoned animal. The difference between lack of experience and super experience. And I can, you know, Mason had that same issue, and I can promise you, we go right back there, and he jumped right back in now too, because he's been there, done that. That's a perfect example of what I'm getting at. You know, when I see something in a training situation or in a hunting situation that I can do something to replicate the look at home and at least expose the dogs to it. You know, if I'm bringing a dog out there to hunt with you again, they would be in that blind at here before they do it there, just to give them an association to understand, okay, I got to jump down in this hole that's ground level, and have the faith to jump in that hole and operate in and out of it, and just get a little general understanding. You know, actually what I built was, you know, it's not at ground level, but it's a box with a small hole on the top and then a lid. And you can open the lid and just get the dog to jump in and out of the box, and then close the lid and teach them to come out of the smaller hole. It makes the whole process a lot easier to teach a dog that's new to it, especially a young dog. So that's a perfect example of one of the situations, and I had seen that before, but never when it wasn't around the North Platte or a goose blind that was, you know, where people hunt fields and have these buried goose blinds. But that's one of the many options. Got it pulled up. Yeah, that's what y'all are seeing when you see the top of Tanner's head. That's all of the dog that sticks out. It's literally the whole dog's underground, and normally they'll have brush that covers the top of the dog's head, so they're just peeking. But it takes something to teach a dog to learn to jump down into that hole. It's just different.
I mean, it might as well have freaking rattlesnakes in it for all they know.
Exactly right. And it's not natural. You know, their whole life they jump into the back of the truck. They go into the kennel. They don't go down into anything. So it's just a different sensation, a different feeling. So when you're gonna, you know, when you've got your favorite duck hole and you know what your dog's gonna experience, do everything in the world to keep that hunting experience to not be their first time being there. If you're going to take your dog down the river hunting, don't let their first boat ride be the morning that y'all load up all the gear and go out in the dark. You know, go take a couple of river rides and let him get used to riding in a boat, to know where his place is in the boat, to know all these little things that make life so much easier. You laugh, you laugh here, but this ain't funny. Teach them not to pee in the boat, because it's one thing, you know, when you got to
pee in the boat.
Well, the same thing as potty training at the house. You know, you see them start to do it, you get onto them for it. And, you know, I'd much rather them start to pee in the empty boat than on top of my waiter bag. You know, there's times and places to teach that stuff. So little stuff like that can make your life so much easier. Riding in the boat, riding in the buggy. If you're gonna ride your buggy into the blind, I think about Arkansas and going through the rice fields and the bean fields to get to the pit blinds.
Or a tree stand.
And see, that to me, that picture, that's not the worst thing in the world, because at least the dog's somewhat near you and they can operate with you, as opposed to being, at a remote location, 20, 30 yards behind you where they're not seeing the whole thing. With young dogs, as much as I can be close to them, I like to be close to a young dog till they get comfortable, with the movement of the gun, with the understanding. I mean, when you tell a young dog that's done nothing but train its whole life to mark, they look straight ahead of them, and they look for the bird boy, or they look for the wing, or whatever way they were trained. They don't look up, because birds don't come from up high in the sky in training. They come off the ground, up into the air, and then back down. They've got to learn to look for birds. They got to learn to track things in the air, and that's some dogs take to that much, much more quickly than others. Again, experience is a big deal there. Going and hunting in the thickest buckbrush break that you can find is not a recipe for success with a young dog. One of the dogs that I dropped off the other day, I got a picture of him sitting there with a mallard in his mouth, and his owner said he did perfect on his first retrieve. And that's one of those just relief moments, because you say, at least that dog had his first experience, all went together like it should have. It wasn't a chasing his tail and confusion, and the dog sitting in the bottom of the boat and there's a scissor blind, and all the guys are sitting up and shooting, and the dog sitting in the bottom of the boat, getting shell shock and can't see anything. I mean, there's so many different times, when you do your setup and you're going to hunt off a stand, a dog is not going to flare birds near as bad as a hunter. I mean, that's just the truth of it. At the end of the day, a dog sitting out there totally exposed, for whatever reason, does not flare ducks the way a hunter's face shining up does. Mm-hmm. So put them in a place that they can see. Put them in a place where they have the opportunity to mark, even if it's not perfectly camouflaged.
Even though those hunters that are moopieing the ducks, the first thing they blame is the dog.
Absolutely.
That's the first.
We need to turn off those mojos, or we need to turn on the mojos, or so and so.
All these shotgun shells are glaring. All the brass out there is glaring on this in the sun.
We need to change this. We need to do that. It's the paranoia of a duck hunter is something to behold. But
I want to bring up a point. So this dog, this is Deke. This is at Greenbrier, and I want you to look at the dog's front toes. So that dog Deke is about 8. I think he's 7 or 8 years old now, and he's picked up, let's say in 7 years at Greenbrier, he's probably picked up 5,000 ducks. And now, 3 years into it, when he was still a young dog, he figured out that he puts his toes, he wraps his front toes around the edge of that stand, because that gives him a bigger launch and bigger air when he leaves his stand. And he literally, when he sits on stand now, that's how he does. He grips the front of the tree stand like all day. He could be there for 7 hours, and that his toes are on the edge of that tree stand, because he knows that gives him a better launch when Bobby sends him. So
he's sitting on go, and he understands. And the cool thing about where he's hunting, if he's picked up 5,000 birds, 4,500 of them have been within 40 yards and splashed right in front of him, where he's like, hey, here, when you get them in the timber like that, they are toast. It's hard for them to get in. It's even harder for them to get out. Hold your phone back up really quick. This is one of the things people don't think about either. Look what's coming out that shotgun, about to hit the dog on the side of the head.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shell being ejected, and they also have to get used to ducking shrapnel. When things like that happen, you have inconsiderate or misunderstanding hunters who, ring the dog's ears. They shoot right over the top of their head. One of the other things that I see, dogs that get overwhelmed in a hunting situation, when you're hunting in a pit blind and rather than being at your knee level, they're at your shoulder level because the pit's right there and the dog box is built into the pit that way, or the dog's on the outside of the pit sitting a little higher. But when they're inside that pit and you've got a slide back top, or you've got the push panels where you throw the panels down and then everybody raises up, you think about that panel flopping down, everybody's jumping up at the same time, and the dog is gone. That's it. And getting used to all that movement and them having to sit still. I mean, that's a difficult thing. I get to hunt. I've hunted many times for many years at a club that in Arkansas, where at one time I had trained a dog for almost everybody in the club. And that was always fun, because even if we didn't kill birds, kill a limit every day, it wasn't uncommon to hunt 2 and 3 dogs at a time, because all those guys had good experienced dogs. And we'd be in a pit blind with 2 dogs sitting in the same dog box. And you could send one of the dogs and one would stay. That's nothing more than experience and lots and lots of retrieves. But it was always fun to hunt there to watch the dog work.
Do you yourself? So I've got 2 dogs now. I've got a black lab and Tanner. I've got a black lab named Coy from Adam Campbell, which you turned me on to, and then Tanner. Would you take 2 dogs yourself and hunt them? Let's say a dog on each end of the blind. We've got 2 dog pits at every pit. Would you take 2 dogs and hunt them at the same time? I don't know what else to ask.
Well, my question to you would be, did we do it the first time I came to see you?
We did, actually. Yeah, never mind then. I'm trying to pull this photo. Like, I want to do that so badly because I want my dogs to honor and I want them to learn to work together. So I guess I'm going to do that.
If you're going to, one, you got to have somebody with semi-dog knowledge sitting beside the other dog to at least call them into the box and let them sit. And you can practice that. Put a dog on each end. When y'all are brushing blinds in the afternoon, put a dog on each end and throw a mark and send one and make the other one sit still. And for please goodness sake, have 2 collars, because if you don't,
I already have 2
in the world will make you look like a fool if you don't have control on them. So have 2 collars and be comfortable working 2 collars if you're going to hunt 2 dogs, because that is definitely an aspect of that's necessary. The collar's not it's not the severity of the punishment, it's the certainty of being caught.
That was the first thing I'm sorry, I'm looking for this photo that I know I have that you guys would be interested or at least entertained in seeing. But that was the first thing I did when I got Coy, was go get another collar. There's Mason and Tanner.
That's right.
And that was our second duck hunt in the hole we call the Dragonfly hole. That was a cool hunt.
That was really awesome. And to have, that's really cool. But when you also say that's 2 intact males that are that close together and not trying to eat each other, that's a victory in and of itself. But there's so many different experiences that you got to remember that these dogs are going to see. Whether it be taking them to a rice field in Arkansas, and all they can see when they look out there, especially if it's a bean field, is it looks like the ocean. You're in a pit blind in the middle of this field, and they can see hundreds of yards either way, and there's nothing but water. And they go, man, where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to find? And when they get out there and do find a bird and turn around, if you're not breaking the silhouette of the horizon, sometimes they'll be lost and don't know where to get back to you. So, I mean, like I said, I've hunted from Venice, Louisiana, where you're getting in big boats pulling go devils down the river 30, 45 minutes and then getting in the go devils and going into the roseau cane and hunting these roseau cane spots that are based on tides. And then you go, farther up the river and you're hunting in, these huge breaks. You go to Honey Break and see what's there, and that's just a beautiful part of the world. And that's in the middle of the Delta where you can hunt, whether you want to hunt agricultural fields or hunt in the breaks, or you go farther up the river and you're going into flooded green timber. And I mean, you just go on and on and on. You move on up the Rice Belt and get into Arkansas and see the experiences those dogs have there. There's no way you can train a dog to see all this stuff as a trainer. All you can do is try to give them as many different experiences as you can and prepare them for the unexpected, and hope and pray that you have good enough owners to understand that these dogs are not machines and that they have to have these, positive experiences to shape their life. And if you let them break, they're going to be breakers. And if you don't teach them to stay in the boat and your dog jumps out the boat and gets cut by the prop, that's your fault, not the dog's. If your dog breaks his leg jumping out the back of the buggy, that's your fault, not the dog's. These are the things that they have to learn. And if you want them to not ride in a box, then by golly, you better teach them before you get into a hunting situation. And account for the dogs. If you're going to have multiple dogs in there, you better have more than one box, or you better have dogs that can get along in a box. And you need to know that before you start hunting. These are the things that really set you up for success. If you're going to hunt in waist deep water, then you need to get out there in waist deep water and practice sending your dog, because it might weird them out to jump off of a stand, or even be able to learn how to get up onto a stand when they can't jump off solid ground. It baffles me. It amazes me, and it humbles me, and it also makes me feel so much more accountable to all these situations that, I wish I could show the dogs more before they go home.
I mean, even last year when you brought Mason and Tanner out, I mean, you got Mason, who's an SRS Crown champion, and he shows up in western Nebraska on a warm water slough in a pit with a dog pit. He's never seen any of that stuff. So point being, it doesn't matter if it's a 18-month-old, young dog, young pup, or a 5-year-old SRS Crown champion. If they haven't seen him before, how can you expect them to understand what they're looking at when you get there, right?
That's exactly right. But the good thing is, the more experiences they have, the easier it is for them to generalize the next one, to start figuring out, that new experience. Mason did understand that ducks were going to come from the sky, and that, what the object of the game was, where Tanner was going, hey man, this is great. I don't know what's going on, but this is great. and this is the behind the scenes stuff. When we took both dogs there, and I had that highly volatile potential new situation with Tanner, I didn't know how he was going to handle duck hunting, because you never know how they're going to handle duck hunting until the first time they do. I brought a porter crate down and stuck it in the woods, so that if we had issues, we could control him. We could put him in a situation, take him out of a situation that he was about to develop bad habits in. We didn't have to, but we were prepared for that if necessary. And that goes into, I didn't know exactly what we were going to face, but I did know that he knew what a crate was, and I could have that sucker where I could put him up if I needed to. That was, Jake just asked a question that I hadn't even touched on, which is what happens if you're dry field hunting. He said in a cornfield goose situation with an A-frame layout dog on the outside of an A-frame. If you're unsure if the dog marked the bird, should you step out and run a blind or send him in confidence? If you're not sure if he marked the bird and you send him, that's a kind of a catch-22. Maybe he saw it, maybe didn't. If it's a young dog, if it's a young dog, I'm gonna step out and ask them where their mark is, and if they lock on and say, "Hey, I got it," then I'll send them on their name. If they don't, then we'll run a blind. If it's an older dog, I'm going to say their name first and see if they told me they saw it, and if they didn't, then we'll run a blind.
Just
but when
like
in doubt, simplify. Say that again, Mr. Jake.
just like a dog. I mean, I put myself in a dog's situation, and the things that you're saying now, we're talking about hunting scenarios. I'm looking at I'm thinking about myself going, I don't even know to do that. But I'm like a dog showing up in a new environment, that doesn't understand. And those things that you're saying are clicking with me now because I'm so glad we're back at this whole retriever connection thing, and this conversation is revitalizing for me because now I'm getting my head back into dog training while we're hunting mode because the first day we went out, it didn't even register for me to call Tanner back because we were in a hunting situation. I'm like, go pick up the damn duck. Like it's
Well,
right
and
there.
you
You know,
find it out now. It's so much harder to break bad habits than to ever. When I get kids in to work with, kids are so much easier to teach than adults because they don't have bad habits. They may not have good habits, but having no habits is easier than breaking bad ones. And you have so many, in your learning experience in this past year, you've learned a lot about yourself and you've learned a lot about training dogs, but you still haven't hunted a dog while holding them to those kind of standards because they didn't exist for you up till now.
exactly.
So wait till you start trying to run a blind and say, man, was that a good enough directional change, or do I need to give him a correction for that?
Yeah, yeah.
Or recognizing that when he's trying to give good effort and when he's being a jerk, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that those are all things that you have to take into account. Another bad thing that so many dogs pay the price for is they bear the weight of their owner's egos. The dog gets out there and doesn't do what he wants to do, and the guy's immediate response is to hit the collar and
Bingo.
bust the dog down when it wasn't the dog's fault, or what the dog didn't understand what he was doing. And there goes, hey, bingo, you did get something, a negative association rather than a positive.
Because there's other hunters in the blind, and you're supposed to have this bad to the bone dog, and he's running over the duck, and all of a sudden, the wheels fall off, and it's my own ego that's getting in my way. Like my ego I can't get out of my own ego's way at times
Mhm.
because you want your dog to perform, and all of a sudden it's like, God, what just happened? We've been doing this all summer, and all of a sudden the wheels fall off, and I got to call Steven. I'm going to text him right now.
Well, or one of your buddies, you take your dog out there and the dog doesn't do right, and your buddy goes, "How much money have you spent on that dog?" And look what I'm that guy. I'm picking too. It's part of it. But you know that young dog that's going hunting, that's maybe even less than 2. You're wanting to hunt these dogs till they're 10, 11, 12. What you're going to do in that first year of hunting is give him all the tools he can, experience he can gain as a hunting dog. I was working with a master hunter today, a master hunter, HRCH, Hunt Retriever Champion, master hunter, who did not know how to track a crippled bird in the water. Bird dove on her, no idea how to sit there and tread water and wait. Just blew her mind, and the duck would dive underwater. Or bird lays out there live, fine. She'll go pick that up. Stands up, doesn't realize that that's what she's supposed to pick up. These are the things that experience brings in. And maybe she had a negative experience when she was younger. Maybe she went to go get on a bird and one popped her, and she, rather than making her madder, it intimidated her a little bit. I don't know what happened exactly. I know I'm going to try to fix it, but like I said, this is a super nice animal, has done a pile of good in the retriever world, but that bird dove on her in the water, and she's like, "Oh boy!" Just turned around, started coming back, like, "Okay, I don't know where it's at," And the duck, they'll come up and do that really low swim, low profile on the water. Had no idea how to look for that movement, how to track that scent. It was just, that's an experience thing. You got to get out there and do it and simulate it as much as possible. If you find out, if you got a problem, you find as many ways to simulate it as you possibly can, rather than just getting mad and letting your ego get in the way and using pressure where you shouldn't.
So what do you think? So, when let's say I'm putting a dream team together, all right, and I'm taking I'm taking Steven Durrance, Jimbo, a boat driver. I'm running a camera. We're going on a duck hunt. Jimbo's looking up. I mean, it's daylight. It's not even daylight. It's still dark. We're at a new hole. He's looking up at the skyline. He's trying to figure out, okay, the wind's blowing from let's say the northwest. He's looking up at the trees. He's figuring where they're going to break into the decoys before he sets the decoys up. Steven Durrance is doing what?
I'm trying to find out where he wants to set up, and then I am looking for the safest, best
Safe
place to
first.
put. Always say, if you're shooting, if you're putting your dog in jeopardy when you're pulling a trigger, I mean, you got to look at yourself and the values that you got there. I mean, I would rather, if I'm doing like what you're saying, if I'm the dog guy in the situation, I'd rather not shoot a gun and put my dog in a situation where he's going to be a rock star than at the end of the day know that I killed as many birds as I possibly could. So I'm looking for, where can I be that is going to allow the dog to see the most action, to be as safe as possible, whether it be in the line of fire or protecting their hearing. And if it's a young dog, can I be as close to him as possible so that I can be that security blanket? I don't want to leave a young dog sitting on an island when they don't understand their responsibilities. The older they get, that's one of the cool things, when you start talking about that. I'm going to bring a bad to the bone hunting dog that I can put anywhere, that I can put on a stump and they're going to be fine. Or I can, let sit in a boat and I can wade out away from it. Whatever the factors are, I'm going to bring that dog that I can stick anywhere and send anywhere from where I'm standing. But I'm looking at where my hunter's going to be and where are we expecting the birds to come from and where can my dog see the most. Those are the things that I'm trying to, and if they can do that from a super hidden location, that's super good. But, like for example, that marsh stand with the kennel on the top, that's on my Christmas list, because it's so easy to have a dog super hidden and be dry in flooded environments. I like
that because I got a good one of you in Mason when we were in the cottonwoods here at Prairie Rock, and I think that's a good example of what you're talking about. Hang on one second. You train out of dog blinds when you're training?
Not as much as I should. I mean, I don't do anything hunting as much as I should. I'm so focused on a daily basis of teaching dogs to mark super well, teaching dogs to sit great on a whistle. Exactly. I mean, that's a perfect example of, he's sitting there in that stand, and the most that you can see of him is right there in the front. You wouldn't be able to see him at all from the back. And that is exactly where I sat and shot ducks, just like that.
That is the spot. That is exactly it.
You did a really good video, sit right through the V in that tree, looking over my shoulder.
Yeah. We set that one up. Remember that?
Yeah, we made the duck come in right there. It was,
as soon as he gets up that decoy right there,
we're gonna shoot him right there. But all that to say, having the right equipment makes a big help. Getting them comfortable in that equipment. Now, that being said, I spend so much time teaching dogs how to mark, how to run blinds, how to change directions, all that good stuff. when you have a well socialized, comfortable dog, teaching them the dog stand is not a hard thing. It's harder to teach them um, to go to it from remote, sit away from you, and you be able to tell them kennel or place or whatever your command is and let them go run, jump in there from a distance and then operate out of that. That takes a little bit more work. That's one of the great things. If the more information an owner can give me on what to expect, what they need to be. Here's one thing that blows dogs' minds: a dog vest. If you've never put a dog vest on them, they totally clam up when you put it on them. They just takes them a while. It takes them a while to learn how to move in it. These are experienced things that owners can do ahead of time to set the dog up for success. I have another dog that went to Nebraska this year, and that was one of the things that the duh moment. One of my guys was getting the dog ready, and he totally never put the dog in a vest. Didn't even cross his mind. He was doing a lot of stuff off stands. He said, "Oh, y'all hunting dry fields? We'll do this." Had the dog doing all the stuff that we were told to prepare for, but totally just blanked on putting a vest on him. It's anything that you can think of to let them experience before it's a hunting situation. Anything you can do. It's just like I said, I'm supposed to be a professional. I'm supposed to be good at this. And every time I go hunting, I go, man, I could do a better job teaching this dog this before they go hunt. So again, a trained dog is not a hunting dog. A trained dog is ready to go hunting, to experience the fun parts about hunting. I tell people this all the time, and it's tongue in cheek to a certain extent, but 90% of the things that dogs learn while they're hunting are not good. The learning to be vocal, learning to break, learning, there's so many good things, learn how to chase down cripples, learn how to be comfortable sitting in an uncomfortable situation. There's a lot of good. Learn how to see birds flying in the sky. That's when the first time I knew for a fact, I knew that my eyes were not perfect, but it had never inhibited my ability. But the first time I said, I'm going to the eye doctor was when I was sitting in a pit in Arkansas, and my dog was seeing birds before I did.
Mm-hmm.
That just stare out there into the abyss, and all of a sudden you see this little black speck coming, and she'd be locked on and just, and I'm going, okay, where, and it would be a significant amount of time later before I saw him. I was like, I'm going home and I'm going to the eye doctor.
I've gotten to the point to where I watch my dog, especially in timber, because like if you're trolling and you're calling just to troll for birds that might be off in the distance that you can't see, I watch the dog, especially as a camera guy, because the dog knows before any of the humans do. For an experienced dog, anyway. Do you put the dog on place while setting up decoys, or do you let them burn off some excitement? And that's a good question, because I let my dog go crazy.
Well, sure you do, because you're Jake. That being said, there's a little bit, there's good and bad to both of those scenarios. If I've got a dog that's going to struggle on steadiness, making them sit and watch decoys splash helps that. It actually, that you could say, okay, well, you let them burn it off and that'll make them feel better. Dog's not going to run out of energy. And so
that's a good point.
Letting them sit there and have to learn every time that thing splashes, especially a young dog. This is another experience that the young dogs don't see.
These
you pull those suckers up and you sit them down and you start throwing decoys and they're going, they're everywhere. And so I think if you're going to have trouble with steadiness, I would definitely make them sit. If you got a young dog that just needs to learn to walk through the decoys and be comfortable, let them go with you. I had a dog years ago that had social anxiety. She did not like strangers. She would run for the devil himself if she was working, but just in a social situation, somebody walk up to him and pet her, she didn't like that a bit. But if you put her in a mutt hut or a dog stand where she knew that she could be comfortable and this was her spot, she was good to go. So that dog, you let her be on her place from start to finish, because she didn't care who called her name. She just didn't want you to pet her. She didn't want you to love on her. She just wasn't that kind of dog. So the answer to that, Bennett, is what does your dog need to do Does it need the experience of being out there with you, or does it need to learn to be steady a little bit, from the start? The older they get, I would say the more that they're okay sitting over there on their spot while you're doing things. Young dogs are going to be excited, and don't put yourself in a situation that you can't back up. So what I mean by that is if you're going to be every time you turn your back, putting them back on the stand, put a lead on the stand and make them sit there with the lead on. And if you're going to put a lead on the stand, make sure that they can't hurt themselves. They can't jump off and hang themselves, or, the only thing, this is one of the things that's pointed out to me about that stand that I like so much of yours. If it were, and it would be very hard to do it because of the configuration of how those feet are. The only bad thing about that marsh stand is that 3 sides are totally covered. And if you were in deeper water and that thing were to tip forward, dog can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a scary thought. It would take a lot for it to happen, but as always,
it happen, yeah.
So you got to
stay under a boat that's upside down in the water.
Yep, exactly. So,
that's a good point.
So, just knowing what your situation is and what the dog needs to experience. I mean, I like a dog that sits there and is a good boy and doesn't go running all over the place. That's my personal thing. You could call me vain, but it's a pretty nice thing when you sit down beside the dog, and especially when he's at shoulder level and he's not soaking wet and throwing water on you from the start. Especially when it's in the 20s or
boys that are tossing out in the spread, and I mean, controlled. I mean, we all know that a control dog creates much less anxiety than otherwise.
Exactly. And I mean, like a perfect example, a dog like Tanner, he's going to be wherever you let him be, period.
Mm-hmm.
End of discussion. That's just what he's going to do.
Like you said, if I let him do it the first time, then he's going to continue to do that until I don't let him do it. And it takes me longer to not let him do it after I've let him do it before than it is if I put him in his place and I teach him the first time what he's not supposed to do or what he's supposed to do. He reacts much better than if I ignorantly let him get away with something the first time. Then I've got a can of worms on my hands. You know what I'm saying?
This may be something that you never think of or you never experience.
Probably.
But for, teaching a dog to jump in the boat and sit in the boat and be there until you ask them to be, that's great in a hunting situation. It's even better when you're at a crowded public boat ramp, and everybody's got a dog, and you're going to have a dog fight somewhere, and then you're going to have an argument, and then it's going to be a bunch of foolishness. Where if your dog knows to get in the boat and be in the boat, it's a whole different story if your dog's in your boat and somebody else's dog comes in it, as opposed to if your dog's running all over the place out of control and they get in a fight in the middle of the ramp. It's just preventing the unexpected by knowing where your dog is and knowing how to, knowing that they know where they're supposed to be. We could talk all night about the different scenarios and different things that happen that you don't expect to happen. I mean, I had a client lose his dog in the marsh. Not his fault, not saying that. But he was hunting in Louisiana, and dog was coming back from a retrieve in a high wind, got lost, and it was like 2 or 3 days before they found him in a helicopter. And they just knew he had been eaten by an alligator. But it wasn't he was trying to be a bad owner. It was the dog was doing what he has done, 1,000 times before, big crosswind. He gave it up. And they truly thought that just between the blind and where he beached, he must have encountered a gator. And, how crazy is that? Dog's been doing it for that long, and then he's just gone. And at high wind, he got lost on the wrong side of the wind, and it took them hiring a helicopter and flying it before they found him.
I remember a scenario where Shannon did a water dog TV show and a feature about a dog that was sitting. His owner, they've been duck hunting for years. She's actually a dentist, but a dog trainer, an amateur dog trainer too. and he let his dogs sit on the bow of the boat when they're running through the woods, whatever it is. The dog's up there like a hood ornament, and the wind's blowing in his ears, and he's having a great time. Boom! He hits a log. He's in a mud. He's got a mud motor. He hits a log, and the motor doesn't give on the log, and it stops the boat. The dog goes over the bow. The motor finally gives, continues to go over the log, and he runs over the dog, and he cuts his back leg off so bad, or cuts his back leg so bad with a prop, they had to amputate the back leg of this. It was a chocolate lab at the time. And I'll never forget that episode, because that was the episode where they were emphasizing the command place in the boat. And it was extremely eye-opening to me as to what could happen when you least expect it.
Well, and when you're running a surface drive, it doesn't matter where the dog is. If he goes out of the boat, he's in danger. Whether he goes off the side or whatever, because that thing's skimming across the surface back there, and it's things happen so fast.
The blender, yeah.
So it's there are inherent dangers that happen anywhere. They got 2 guys now that are missing in Mississippi right now. Two young guys that were out scouting for ducks, and they've been gone for days now. You just pray that everything comes out all right. But they found the boat that wasn't terribly wrecked. They found evidence, but they haven't found the guys. And they could be lost. They could be anything. You just don't know. Your mind goes to all kind of bad places. But the same thing could be said about, and we do it all the time. You get in a boat with waders on. Those waders are great to keep water out, but they also keep water in. And you go overboard with waders on, you better know how to get out of them, or you go into the bottom.
That's Navy SEAL stuff there. When you get into cold water in duck season with waders on, that's Navy SEAL escapism there. It's
hard enough to get out of them suckers when you're sitting on dry ground.
It's hard enough to take them off on the tailgate.
That's exactly right.
Water and suction and all that stuff. What would you say? I've got clients here I probably need to get to. We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. It's been a good discussion. If you were to wrap this conversation up with some advice to people, what would you give them?
It's the same thing I've been saying the whole time, just a different way. Expect unexpected. Know that you got a first year hunter, and think of every possible scenario that you could encounter and try to prepare the dog for it. And also know that no matter what you do, there's always going to be something that pops up that you go, man, I didn't think about that. Think of the dog. If it's not first, at least put it in the top 5. Give it a chance to be successful, and leave your ego at the truck when you leave. And remember that this is a journey, and it's going to be a lot of fun when he figures it all out.
I think there's something, that I hear and I say all the time. It's if I couldn't hunt with a dog, if I couldn't duck hunt with a dog, I wouldn't hunt at all. So if you feel like that and you care about your dog that much, then hey, like you said, would we go over? Let's rehash this. Safety first, and then vision, marking, and
allowing the dog to see where the action's going to be. And make sure also, and this I haven't said this, but I need to, try to make them as comfortable as you can. If it's freezing, don't let them sit in the water. Allow them, they don't have to be perfectly dry. They just need the opportunity to isolate their body heat. Last week we were hunting in, it was not extremely cold, but we had about a 20-mile-an-hour wind at our back, and we were in waist deep water and trying to keep the dogs above the water. It was just, if you just put the stand in the water and just watch the waves hit it, it would knock it over. And allowing the dog to try to somewhat stay dry. So keep them comfortable, keep them safe. I guess that could fall in the safety side too if you're talking about cold water. But, and a dog that has, less drive than others, those kind of difficult circumstances can turn them off. Just like taking a child, I saw how I could see my own child in this. The first day we hunted in Mississippi, one of the guys had his 6-year-old son with him, and we're talking about like 50-degree morning. It was super nice. It was not cold, and the little boy, he's waist high to everybody else, and he starts playing around, walking around, tempting fate. I'm gonna fall in, and then he heard, and sure enough, he had dipped in. Oh, it's so cold, but it really wasn't. And then he realized it was kind of warm, and so he fell in 2 or 3 more times. He thought it was funny until he got cold. And his daddy sat right there and said, "Get on this side of the tree, get out of the wind, and you'll warm up." And he was getting, "Oh, but daddy, but," and he said, "No, son." He said, "You didn't listen to what I told you. You got to tough it out now." It was a perfect morning. You can't do that when it's 30 degrees. But
Where
when
I
it's
live, yeah.
but it was a perfect opportunity for that kid to learn. All he had to do was listen to his daddy, and everything was going to be okay. But he wanted to play. He wanted to dip and dive in that water, and he got it. He got everything he asked for, and he learned that wasn't going to fly. I hope that carries him in the future. But I can see those same lessons coming for my son in the near future. So, guys, be smart and be safe, and understand too. I'm a dog trainer, but it's hunting season, and I'm thinking a lot about hunting. And if y'all have some specific topics that you would like us to touch on, that since we're not necessarily going through that systematic approach and that Jake and I have been breaking down, if you've got some things that you would like to hear us discuss, let us know. If you have some suggestions on how to make this better, let us know. That doesn't mean we're going to listen, but let us know. I mean, one of the really good feedbacks that I got this past weekend was that, and this is something that this hasn't ever been done before in this format, and getting a little bit more seamless transition between the videos. The actual format, I think, needs a little bit of adjusting on our part, so that we don't have any lag, all that good stuff. All this stuff is great. Great feedback. But if you want to hear us touch on something, if there's something that's on your heart you want us to kind of address, let us know. Send us an email. A little bit of guidance right now, because guys, I ain't gonna lie to you. This is the end of my really fast and furious season. We've been running a bunch of competitions. We've been running a bunch of hunt tests. We've been training a bunch of dogs. And at this very moment, I am not training dogs myself. I am working with trainers. I'm sitting behind the guy and saying, "Hey, you could do this a little bit better. Hey, what if you did this? Let's problem solve our way through this dog." I'm decompressing actively at the moment. So I love this format. I love what we're doing, and I want to keep it relevant for y'all. So if you see something pop up you want to talk about, let us know. Because like I said, I'm thinking about the whistling wings and wind at my back and birds coming in.
Well, we got, we're just about to get started on the heart of our duck season, and we're going to be filming Tanner and Coy in different situations. We're probably going to be playing these videos on the show here. So, and then we're going to break those down just like we did in training. I'm going to be making tons of mistakes. I can't wait to start learning again from Steven. My mind is, back in this game, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, like I said, I've got clients. We're really busy at Prairie Rock. It may not be conducive to every single Tuesday. I don't know yet. We're going to have to play this by ear, but we're going to do our best to try to be as consistent as we can and get this thing going again. And thanks, everyone. We had, 35 or 40 people here the whole time. So I'm super impressed with the enthusiasm, and thank you guys very, very much for tuning in. And I guess we'll see you the next time on the Retriever Connection. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Absolutely.
I
agree.
Good. This felt good.
Don't be gone so long next time.
Yeah, you guys have a great night. Good duck hunting to you. And most duck seasons are open, so I hope you guys are into ducks and and we'll see you again.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.